Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Arnab Goswami on the debate at 9. Presented by Amity University. Powered by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Century Ply and B1.
Good evening and welcome. Europe is totally divided now. Germany has shown signs of opting out of the sanctions against Russia. Germany says it cannot go completely with Western sanctions, especially because it is energy dependent on Russia. This is a very important development. The whole world is changing before our very eyes, ladies and gentlemen. It seems Russia has managed to break Europe or cause a rift internally. America is pushing for war. Every day, it's effectively sending planes to fight Ukraine by reinforcing Poland for every fighter jet it sends to the war. The West, in desperation to make it NATO versus Russia and to get the upper hand, is inching the world closer and closer and closer to a bigger conflict. And they who say they don't want the war, they actually want it to continue till Russia kneels. With Europe getting divided, they will get more desperate, and I fear for a moment when they will force a serious escalation. And so I say tonight, the time for peace is now. Hashtag give peace a chance. Hashtag give peace a chance now. And that time to hashtag give peace a chance is slowly running out. And if those who say give peace a chance continue actually to back the escalation effectively, then it doesn't mean anything. Yes, the Ukrainians have been pushed to war. But when the war ends now depends on America. How the war ends now depends on America. And whether the war ends, ladies and gentlemen, depends on America. We have two big debates to see. Is America's ego going to be the cause of World War III? Joining me on top of the show is the first Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine. She's joining me now in a few minutes. My second debate, could UP churn out a surprise? Right now it's totally advantage Yogi after the exit polls. And ladies and gentlemen, from Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Donetsk, Lithuania, I'm glad to tell you that the world's largest ever reporting contingent from the war zone is only of your network, the Republic Network. And here are the headlines this Monday evening on the debate tonight. The biggest election headline: Yogi Adityanath is set to retain his chair as Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister. Different exit polls, but one big story of a sweep in the making in Punjab. Team Kejriwal may be way ahead. Uttarakhand and Goa could see neck-to-neck battles. BJP could retain Manipur. As world leaders try their best to mediate, Putin wants Europe and the West of further escalation. Germany says it cannot afford to suspend Russia oil supplies. Europe is split on the sanctions. And the world's largest reporting contingent goes where no global channel can. We are live from 5 nations tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, there is no sign of the conflict in Ukraine abating. Shelling is on, bombardment is consistent, and any claims of a ceasefire seem to be just on paper. The need of the hour is to give peace a chance. It is for America to pick up the phone and talk to Putin. Give up your ego. America needs to set its ego aside instead of perpetually instigating. Our reporters first bring you the developments from ground zero, and then we debate.
Нахуй горит, блядь. with every passing day, you're entering the 12th day of the invasion. What you're looking at, both sides seeing equal number of, if not equal, but certainly higher number of casualties on both sides at this stage. So the scene that we are seeing from covering from one city to the other, you've seen scenes of despair, and especially people not really having the time to gather together so that they can leave the city.
The fact that Russia's seats are empty speaks loudly. They are not here in this court of law. They are on a battlefield, waging aggressive war against my country. This is how Russia solves disputes. But Ukraine has another position and respects international law and this court of law.
The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has already agreed to send fighter jets to Poland so that Poland can send its fighter jets to Ukraine to assist its fighting with Russia. We'll have to wait and watch how things are going to escalate further, though every coming day we are seeing as to how things are getting escalated between Russia and Ukraine day by day. Third rounds of talks are also expected to take place in coming few days.
We have reached a region called Melensky, which is about on the southern side of Kiev. 24 hours ago, there was a blast, a bombardment that took place in this very city that we have reached. We have been on the go. We have covered from the northern side. This time we've decided to look at what's really happening down south and move towards up Kiev. Now this place, we are told that there was 2 aerial bombardment that took place, but these were military bases that were attacked just yesterday, roughly about 7 o'clock in the evening.
In the southern areas of the Donetsk People's Republic, specifically near Mariupol, it's said that as of just over an hour ago, the ceasefire has taken place. It's unclear how well that is sticking. Here in Donetsk, we can hear the shelling now. I'm not sure if my microphone's picking that up, but there's no ceasefire here on the front line between this side of the contact line in Ukraine. There's clearly battles going on back and forth.
India has been maintaining its balanced point of view, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a word not only with President Zelensky but also President Putin, and he deeply raised his concern about the humanitarian crisis and also asked an appeal for the safe passage of the people who are stuck inside the war zone.
Якщо вторгнення продовжується і Росія не відмовилась від своїх планів проти України, значить потрібен новий санкційний пакет. Нові санкції, нові санкційні кроки проти війни заради миру. Бойкот російського експорту. Зокрема, відмова від нафти і нафтопродуктів з Росії. Це можна називати ембарго, а можна просто мораллю. Коли відмовляєшся давати гроші терористу.
The West has been giving a number of statements of solidarity for Ukraine, but they directly refuse to be in this war. Else, they are instigating the war and supplying a number of weapons to Ukraine at this time. So this is how the West is failing Ukraine and instigating war.
We also are, on a regular basis, reviewing our global posture. And that will continue. And of course, as we do that, we have to factor in the latest developments, including this aggression from Russia. So all of that will factor into our thinking, into our decisions about what we do going forward. And of course, we're working on all of these issues within the NATO alliance.
We also talked about further reinforcement of the eastern flank of NATO and reinforcement or strengthening of the regional security of Baltic countries. I would like to thank the United States, Canada, Spain, other allies who are already contributing to our security and have also contributed additionally to our security more recently.
And joining me first is Ms. Emin Zaparova, who is Ukraine's first Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of the government of Ukraine. Thank you very much. I hope that you are safe. Ms. Emin, what is the truth right now about the humanitarian corridors? Have the evacuations been going on?
Good evening, dear Arnab, and all those Indian people who are watching us. For the question, if I'm safe, I don't think that it's possible to feel safe anywhere in Ukraine because we are under airstrike, shellings and bombings. And millions of Ukrainians have been suffering humanitarian crisis when they have no electricity, water, food, warmth, and people have been just killed in a very cynical and terroristic way. The situation with the humanitarian corridors, even though there were arrangements to have humanitarian corridors on the territory of Ukraine, in fact, they don't work because Russia has been provocating and intentionally doing its best to have the corridors on its territory. And when, for example, foreign ambassadors have been appealing and requesting us to open up the corridors, we have the corridors, but it's not safe to move the Ukrainian territory because Russia have been constantly shelling these corridors, thus making the foreign ambassadors to call for the Russian side. And then Russia wants to look like a noble savior and to open up the corridors on the Russian territory. And we believe this is yet another hybrid war against my country. But for those terroristic actions that we have, unfortunately, the biggest concern is that we've been shelled from the sky. And the biggest request of Ukrainian leadership, including President Zelensky, is to provide no-fly zone. And I've also heard that your journalists and you, dear Arnab, say that United States have been pushing Ukraine to the war or have been provocating Russia to be more aggressive. I fully disagree with this statement. It's not an instigation. What we request from the Western world weapons for us to be defensive weapons, not offensive, for us to be much more prepared for those shellings and bombings that Russia has been committing against us. And this is not instigation. We have to call spade a spade. This is Russia that started the war. Russia did it in 2014 when they occupied sovereign territory of Ukraine. 7% of Ukrainian territory was under occupation, and the 13th day of war is just the continuation of the aggressive nature. And I'm sure that our inability, meaning the international community, our inability to stop aggression in 2014 is a direct consequence of what we have today in Ukraine.
Ms. Emin, what I have said, and I need to tell you where my position comes from. And let me tell you, first of all, no channel, no network across the world has fought so much to end the suffering of the Ukrainian people as our channel. Our people are on the ground in Lviv, in Kiev, in Kharkiv, where the bombings have happened, where the hospitals have been attacked, where the kindergarten schools have been attacked. So we have put our reporters on the ground and we can see what is happening to the people of Ukraine. But Ms. Zaparova, what I'm saying tonight is this. This is no longer about who started the war. This is now becoming about who will end the war. And that is where I feel that everybody, allow me to complete, it is not about who started the war, it is about how we will end the war. And why can't Biden call Putin? How is it that Turkey can mediate but Biden can't negotiate? Even Narendra Modi has been talking to Zelensky, to Putin. And if our Prime Minister has indicated his readiness to provide any assistance to talk, I feel it is hugely ironical that the Americans, who have a direct role in this, are refusing to talk but instigating everyone else.
Dear Arnab, not only Ukrainians suffer, but also thousands of Indian students on the territory of Ukraine have been suffering humanitarian issues, those who did not have a chance to be evacuated. The issue that you have raised is that actually we have to know who started the war, and if so, and if we understand that Russia started the war, don't you think it is Russia to end the war? Don't you think it's Putin's ego that actually brought us to this hell where we all are, when thousands of Ukrainians are actually under the risk of life and death? So if you ask me who is responsible for this and whose responsibility to end up the war, it is Russia and Putin himself, who brought his 140 million nation into the violence, hell of death and crimes against my country. United States have been tried their best to mediate before 24th happened.
No, they're not.
Other leaders, including Narendra Modi, President Erdogan, and other leaders have been trying to mediate, calling for Putin to stop the aggression, but it doesn't work out. It doesn't work.
Okay, can I say one thing? Okay, so slight point of disagreement. I would say that why not send Kamala Harris to Moscow instead of Poland? Is America desperate to go to a war between Russia and NATO when even the Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, is going to Moscow? The US sends Kamala Harris to Eastern Europe to rile up Putin further and escalate the war. Why not send Kamala Harris to Moscow to mediate with Putin instead? And my other point tonight is, and you need to look at what's happening on the ground. I've just got some breaking news. Can I share it with you? My breaking news right now, Ms. Zafarova, is that Hungary has said, we will not support the expansion of sanctions against Russia's energy sector. Hungary says the expansion of sanctions against Russia's energy sector is a big threat to the national currency of the people of Hungary. Now, we've also heard that Germany has said the same thing. Germany has said we will not be part of sanctions against Russia on the energy sector because we're energy dependent on Russia. The point I'm trying to make is that if this drags further, Europe gets divided, not united. This is the reality. Ms. Zafarova, the negotiations must widen.
Ukraine is the most interested side to stop the war by any means. We have been committed to peaceful resolution since 2014. We've been looking for different ways, but unfortunately, the classic way of Russian negotiation is that either you do what they want or it doesn't work out. They have been constantly making or trying to make us to follow their line with regards to the war in Donbass, and they claim that this is a civil war, but it's not. They provided military coordination, they provided weaponry, and they fueled up the war on the eastern part of my country, and they swallowed Crimea. They occupied my homeland, by the way. I used to live in Crimea, and I was a journalist like you, Arnab. And today, the negotiation with Russia is yet again a very classic one. They say you have to recognize Crimea, you have to recognize so-called DNR, LNR, you have to get rid of this, of that. This is all a very existential issue. Russia wants us to live how they see this. And my country is standing for its own choice. And our choice is to be the part of Western world. When you say that Europe is divided, I would disagree. It is absolutely sometimes a very cynical business as usual position. And we see it, especially when it comes to the energy issue. And my president is very clear saying that you should provide embargo for gas and oil because it's a very bloody thing today. Because when thousands of Ukrainians have been dying, making business with Russia, thus making it stronger, is a crime, is a kind of a sharing these crimes, is a kind of appeasing these crimes. And we say you cannot dance tango with an aggressor. We will keep on do so. And of course, we will be happy that as many leaders as possible will talk to President Putin, saying that this aggression must be stopped.
Are you getting closer to joining NATO? Because 3 days back, NATO's Cyber Defense Agency announced Ukraine as a contributing participant. Is this one step closer to NATO?
For Ukraine,
yes,
membership in NATO is one of the main foreign policy goals enshrined in our constitution in 2019. The Ukrainian parliament, by the absolute majority, voted for the constitutional change where we enshrined the membership in European Union and NATO in the constitution. This is the ground. And this is not something artificially brought by United States or other partners. This is indeed, and I'm very frank saying so, that this came from within. This is the choice of Ukrainian people, and we fight for it. The other issue, if the Western world will back us up, so we feel lack of this backup, when we ask NATO countries to assure a no-fly zone, we believe this is in a way making us keep on dying. When we request defensive weaponries, including planes and jets, they are not yet here, by the way. It is also about our preparedness and our readiness to fight back. It's not about us fighting or attacking Russia. We never did so. We are a peaceful country. You really said that we have to give a chance for a peace. I've been to India many times. I visited Sai Baba's ashram, and I think that this peaceful issue and this issue of peace is very strong, and Ukrainian people are very peaceful people. We don't want to have a war, but when we attacked, we will fight back for our choice. And this is a very existential issue. For us, It's crucial to be backed up by Western world.
Okay. Emin Zaparova, thank you very much for joining us right now. We are, and good luck to you. And we are getting all kinds of breaking news, including just got a breaking news that the Joint Chief of Staff Chairman Mike Milley made an unannounced visit to undisclosed airfield near the border with Ukraine last week. And this is what Sputnik is saying, quoting media sources. The airfield was said to have been turned into a major hub for the shipment of NATO weaponry into Ukraine, with Milley having toured the facility, acquainted himself with the weapons transfer. And this is all Russia is basically trying to say, that America is getting closer and closer to involving NATO in the conflict. That's Emin Zaparova. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's Emin. Thank you. And I go across right now. I have Sami Hamdi, who is the managing director at the International Interest, a global risk and intelligence company from London. He's on the top left of your screen. And to my right on the screen is Mark Mirowitz, professor, State University of New York, Maritime College. And ladies and gentlemen, I have Andy Knight, who's the Fulbright Distinguished Chair in International and Area Studies. He's joining us from at Yale, and he's joining us from New Haven. Good evening, Andy. And we have Dr. Mohammed Kojak, Mohammed Kojak, geopolitical analyst from Ankara, Turkey playing a big role. Madhav Nalapat, very popular geopolitical analyst from India. We have Nikita Menkovich from Moscow, director of the Eurasian Analytical Club. From London, back on the debate, the very opinionated Abdul Bari Atwan, editor-in-chief of Raya News. He's joining us from London, and Andrew K.P. Leung gives us a China view from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Sami, what's going on? I see a little bit of division. Am I right to see there's a little bit of division? You understand the risks well. Is a bit of division in Europe with Hungary and Germany saying we can't go along with the Russian sanctions on oil and gas and energy?
I think it's important to highlight that Germany relies heavily on Russian gas. Europe relies heavily on Russian gas generally, and that makes this issue very complicated for Europe to really apply that pressure on Russia that is needed rather to contain this invasion, this Putin's invasion on Ukraine. There's also this sense that, at least for the Europeans, that the situation could have been handled better either by the Americans or by other parties that are involved, and that there were perhaps chances a bit to avoid this particular war, and perhaps the Ukrainians were a bit too eager to either join the EU or join NATO in the first place. I also think that for many in Europe and indeed in the Middle East, the allies of the US, a lot of their troubled relationship with the US is spilling over into this war. The idea being that countries such as the UAE, countries such as Turkey, countries such as Hungary and the like, those who have problems in their relationship with the US are sort of saying, we can't rely on this partner that is the US. We need Russia to have good relations with Russia. The US, because it's unreliable, we are not willing to put ourselves in a difficult position where we bear the brunt of any consequences that happen if we decide to take a side in this conflict. And that's why we've seen that Turkey, while it's sending Bayraktar drones, or it has sold Bayraktar drones to the Ukrainians, it's also trying to mediate between the two parties. We saw the UAE abstain from the vote to condemn Russia at the Security Council. There is this idea that whereas the Ukrainians are saying that we're being invaded because we want to be independent, because Putin is angry that the Ukrainians prefer the West over Russia, for everybody else there is rather alternative dynamics that include their personal grievances towards the US that is impacting their ability to present a united front against Russia.
Yes, and that's a reality. That's a reality. I'd like to go across to Nikita Mendovich, and also joining us is very well-known television host from Kiev. Anatoly Yerima is joining us as well. But Nikita, you know, this is getting complicated. How are you viewing it from Moscow? Because Hungary and Germany saying, we're not going ahead with the Russian sanction. Hold it, it's saying. They're saying, hold it to Europe. Who told you we're going to support you if you have energy sanction on Russia? This is an important development. Your thoughts, Nikita.
First of all, I'd like to say that air with no Ukrainian representative at all. Ms. Japarova, she's not Ukrainian. She became a minister as an American agent. She was working for so-called Radio Liberty, and then after Colored Revolution in 2014, she became Minister of the Information. Now she is working as a diplomat.
Yes.
For me, I think that we didn't hear no real information about what happened in the Ukraine. She spoke for a long time about so-called aggression. But it looks like when terrorists took hostages and when police come in to free them, the representative of the terrorist group started crying and speaking about rude or brutal aggression. In fact, Russian troops came to Ukraine after aggression against Russia and against our allies in Donbass. In fact, Ukraine, under control of the current regime, did support terrorist attack against Russian Crimea and against other Russian citizens. In fact, they sent those agents to commit terrorist attacks against people, against infrastructure. In Russia, it is well-known so-called Sentsov conspiracy. He was an agent of the military intelligence of Ukraine.
No, but they're saying, Nikita, you said ceasefire, but they're saying that you're firing missiles around Kiev. Let me get Anatoly, and he's from Kiev. Anatoly?
Yeah.
Anatoly, every day we're receiving statements of Russia claiming to evacuate citizens and order a ceasefire. Is there a ceasefire on the ground? Would you like to tell our guests from Moscow what your take is on that?
I would like you to hear that, because it was a few minutes ago. You could hear it from my window. But now the air alarm is off, so it's relatively calm, but not for a long time, because it's constantly there are explosions, there are shelling, and there are no humanitarian corridors. For the third day in a row, there are citizens in Mariupol where the situation is the worst. They couldn't get out of the city because those corridors that the Russians promised us, they do not keep their words.
They're saying the Russians are lying about the humanitarian corridors. Nikita, you heard that? They're saying there's proof on the ground that the Russians are lying about the humanitarian corridors.
Yeah.
First of all,
in fact, they say, I'll just complete, Nikita. They say there's a military strike which killed a family which was trying to flee the invasion. And they're saying that there's a family with 2 children and other civilians trying to flee the Russian invasion. And they were at an evacuation crossing point and they were killed, they're saying.
Yeah, it's true. It happened about that family. It happened in the city of Irpin. It's from place where I am now. It's 10 kilometers from here.
Do I have a chance to answer?
Yeah, please respond. Please respond.
Okay. First of all, it was Russia who proposed to build the so-called humanitarian corridors in Mariupol and other cities.
And it is nationalist troops of Ukraine who do not let citizens to get out of the cities. In fact, as I said before, we're dealing not with the government, we're dealing not with the army. We deal with a terrorist group, with the head of Zelensky, supported by United States.
Are you mad, Nikita? Are you mad? Those are lies. Those are lies. We have regular army. We have no regime. We have government, actual government. Don't lie to the world. It's enough. Just look what happens here.
It's not your government. As I said,
it's our government. We've elected it.
Who is in fact? We saw your minister who is not even a citizen of the Ukraine. Please stop crying. I'm speaking now. It is not your turn. It is not your turn. Please stop crying, sir. Please stop crying. It's unacceptable. Please keep your place, sir.
I just want to tell you something. One second. I want to tell you, Anatoly, while you're speaking right now, the pictures in the middle of the screen, I'll let the visuals play. I want to describe the visuals that we are seeing here right now. I have no independent confirmation of this, but these pictures, ladies and gentlemen, on your screen are just above a place called Kalinovka. Can you hear the visuals? Can you hear the sound?
Yeah.
Can you hear the sound, Anatoly? This is above Kalinovka, Kiev region. And these are pictures of cruise missiles flying from the south towards Kiev. And according to eyewitnesses, there were 6 of them. Everyone on the screen, please, the guests, 6 of them. Tell me one thing. Tell me, are they firing cruise missiles towards Kiev now?
Not from at this moment, not. But yesterday, the airport in Vinnytsia was bombed by 8 missiles shot from the Black Sea, from a Russian ship.
So this is escalating. This is becoming very big and very dangerous. Abdul Bari Atwan, this is escalating. This is not becoming. This is not de-escalating. This is seriously escalating to a point where people can't predict what's going to happen in the next 24 hours. Abdul Bari, what do you think? And I'd like Mark to respond to it.
I believe this is definitely escalation.
Yes.
I believe this war will continue as long as the Americans are not listening to what the Russians are demanding. They don't want to expand the NATO to the east. They don't want rocket missiles on their border. They want actually respect to the Ukrainian government actually to respect the independent voices on the east of Ukraine. So this is the problem. The Americans actually are the one who started the war. It is not the Russian. It is not the Ukrainian. They started the war when they actually pushed the Ukrainian government to actually apply for the NATO, to European Union. This is the problem. America can stop this war immediately when they listen to the Russian
I'm saying
demand.
it, Mark, please respond to that. This is getting very, very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And these pictures are real. Ladies and gentlemen, full frame pictures on your screen, which have just come up. These are pictures above Kalinovka, ladies and gentlemen, Kiev region, pictures of cruise missiles flying from the south. And the pictures are from the south and they are going towards Kiev. And eyewitnesses, they say there were 6 of them. There were 6 of them. A serious escalation is going on the ground. I want Mark to respond. Mark, why can't Biden just call Putin? Why can't he talk when he can call Zelensky? Why can't he call Putin? Start the negotiation. Just begin the negotiation. Calm it down.
I'm a little speechless about this discussion. I'm really sad to hear this discussion. Very heartbroken that you would defend, the killing of civilians I mean, honestly, I listen.
Well, where has there been a defense of the killing of civilians? Mark, you can't say that. Where has there been a single defense of the killing of civilians? You're completely misquoting things. There has not been a single defense of that. You shouldn't be saying that.
You sound like you're excited. You should take a calm down.
No, why don't you calm down? No, who is misquoting? Who has said, no, which panelist, which panelist said that? You name the person. Okay. We'll get into a debate. Who said that?
Fine, very good.
Who said that?
Finish, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
Yeah, who said that?
Very simple. Listen, I get to say what I want to say. You know what? Because in America, we have freedom of speech. Maybe you don't.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm sure you had freedom of speech. I'm sure you had freedom of speech when you lied about sending WMDs. You lied about it. I'm sure you had freedom of speech when you lied about it, killed thousands of people and didn't apologize. Now continue on the point. See, listen, Mark. See, listen. You chill. I'm asking you. The question is on mediation. Please respond. Let's not get personal. I can get personal with you, but I won't. You don't get personal with me. Let's respond to the situation. There's a discussion going on. There's a discussion going on. Don't comment on me or my country. I'm not commenting on yours. I'm not commenting on you. I'm not calling America names. I'm saying Turkey can mediate. Why can't America? Why can't we just talk?
Okay,
that's all. Thank you.
The war was started. If you let me finish and be courteous, I'll finish. I'm courteous to you. If someone starts a war and kills civilians, that's a war crime, and you should stop Russia. Russia should stop, and it should stop doing what it's doing and allow negotiations among the parties and to talk about the pullout of Russia from its invasion of Ukraine, which has no justification. 141 nations in the United Nations condemned Russia. They couldn't condemn them in the Security Council because Russia has a veto. And you mentioned before, to respond to the question you asked about the oil and gas imports. Yeah. The truth is, Hungary and Germany do not want to get onto this, but there has to be a way to stop this. And we have the same issue in the United States in terms of the oil and gas imports. This is a big domestic debate.
Yes.
A no-fly zone, the United States doesn't want it, but the United States is going to give MiGs to Poland. MiGs are going to be given via Poland, the United States. We Americans are beside themselves because we are all, and I think from the press that I read, Americans are deeply, deeply disturbed by what is plain, simple, and, plain vanilla aggression. And you know what? There's no, you want to blame the United States for everything, and that's fine. Go ahead. I'm not the United States. I'm just one person, one American. And I, as a human being, I'm looking at what's going on there. Yeah. And I am in tears and heartbroken. Yeah. And I wish the Russians would pull back and stop shelling people and killing innocent people. You know, it reminds me of the Holocaust.
The thing is, now that you're okay, so now I shall respond to you, Mark. Now I shall respond to you, but with a caveat. I'll respond to you with a caveat. With a caveat. I will respond to you only with a caveat. And that caveat is this, that I will say things that will make you uncomfortable. I will show you a picture you don't want to see. I shall place a mirror that you want to avoid, but you shall still hear me. Okay, now, here's what I'm saying. Viewers, we don't need a lecture about democracy, about values, about liberty, and about the free world from the Americans. We shall not. That's a country that is divided, that has set wars, and ladies and gentlemen, believe me, if the Americans cared so much about the Ukrainians, they would not want to keep provoking a war. The Americans want a war. Biden's son has business dealings in Ukraine. There is no doubt about it. You're vying for violence 6,000 miles away because militarily, economically, and strategically, and don't take my word for it. I say don't take my word for it. Just look at everything that America is doing. Everything that US is allowing Poland to transfer MiG-29s to Ukraine despite Russian warnings. You're provoking them. You want the war to escalate. Professor Nalapat, they want it to escalate because it's on a free charge. They're not losing anything. They're not losing anything. They're escalating the belligerence by speaking to the Georgian president and saying, it's the escalation. Kamala Harris is sent to needle Russia. And US leads NATO to push 17,000 anti-tank weapons into Ukraine. I'm asking them, we will take this to a point where we say, oh, we couldn't do enough in this mad scramble because they are threatened for their geopolitical dominance. They are threatened. They hate it. They hate it that Germany has said, we're not with you. They hate it, Madhav Nalapat, when Hungary says, we're not with you. But this is reality. They talk about a rule-based system which they've broken over the years, and I think we are all moving towards a third world war if we don't stop very quickly. I'd like Madhav Nalapat to come in. Let the debate be on. Thanks for hearing me out. Madhav.
Well, I'd only like to say that, and I would request Mark to not keep interrupting me. I didn't interrupt any of the speakers. Arming civilians, untrained civilians, and trying to turn them into fighters. I mean, trying to replay Afghanistan of the 1980s in Ukraine of the 2020s. It is a mad act. Arnab, you're using my language. I would like to say, as a friend of America, as someone who supports an India-America security alliance, it's an act of sheer madness. What is India doing? We are sending food and medicines. What is America doing? Sending Stinger missiles.
Yes.
In 5 to 10 years' time, Arnab, most of the airports in Europe will be unsafe because of those Stingers. And we are talking about American citizens.
You can't take them back.
I'm told about half the Ukrainian government are dual citizens. I'm sorry, Mark, please understand this. And if you're a US citizen, you have to swear an oath of allegiance to the United States, not to Ukraine, not to any other country. And I'm told 50% of ministers in Ukraine are American citizens who have sworn that oath of loyalty to America. So, look, I'm saying send food, like we are doing. Ask for a reasonable ceasefire and not a ceasefire based on Putin's surrender. He's not going to surrender. And you had a chance in Minsk. What happened in Minsk? This minister in Ukraine is talking about international law. The powers decided in Minsk. America was very much in that process. Russia, Germany, France, that the Ukraine will take certain steps, 13 steps. The first step was having a discussion with the separatists in Donbass and Luhansk.
Yeah.
Even that first step has not been done. And Ukrainian ministers are saying, we have thrown Minsk into the waste paper basket. That is your respect for international law. And I want to say, Mark, please understand one thing. A country like America, which has got the blood of millions of collateral damage on its hands, I'm so glad you're talking about morality. At last, you're waking up to the fact that human lives are precious. I hope you'll agree. Afghan lives, Iraqi lives, Syrian lives, Libyan lives are as precious as Ukrainian lives. You don't seem to be feeling that way about all the lives that have been lost in all the countries I've named.
Where I
wonder why.
Where I feel, Madhav, sorry, Professor Nalapat, I know Mark wants to respond, but I'd also like to get Andy in, and I'd like to get Mohammed Kojak in. And we agree on this program. We disagree with our voice. We hear it out. And I thank you that everyone's listening to each other. See, my point, Andy, is, and you're the distinguished professor, but my point is that this is no longer going to be about technicalities, that we are helping NATO but not getting directly involved. It's not going to be about technicalities. When a flashpoint happens, then we are all going to move towards a very apocalyptic scenario of war involving multiple countries. It'll get very spread out very quickly. So I'm just wondering why America is looking at it technically. That we can go on this side of the border, needle this much, send fighters, send Stinger missiles, send things. Technically, we are not with Ukraine, but we are doing it, from behind, because we may not have the luxury of having that technical advantage very soon. Andy, Professor Andy Knight, please.
Yes, we have to be concerned about the bloodshed that's happening. And it's not just happening on the Ukrainian side. Also, I understand that Russians are being killed as well. So there are lots. There's a tragedy all around. The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution calling for the immediate peaceful resolution of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and through peaceful dialogue, through negotiations, mediations, and peaceful means. I was surprised that India decided to abstain from that resolution. I guess that India has agreed with all the things that was in that resolution. For example, India claims to support the international community's call for immediate ceasefire. India supports safe humanitarian access to conflict zones. It remains firm in its support for the United Nations Charter, and it remains firm in its support for the fact that differences can be resolved through dialogue and peaceful means.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that India decided.
Why are you surprised, Andy? We are an independent country. No, why are you surprised?
Exactly.
We're an independent country and a very big and powerful one.
I know, and
Yeah,
this is.
I don't know why you're surprised. I mean, we have our own perceptions, and America has stabbed us in the back so many times. We know when the people in Bangladesh were getting raped and murdered, all you did was try and attack India. You've always been on the wrong side. We can't. My point is very simple, Andy. We can't depend on the Americans. I mean, you're a great country, but we're not going to depend on you. We're not going. Nobody can depend on you.
Let me just put it this way. I am actually from Canada.
Yeah, so I mean, fine, the same block. Sorry,
I'm in the United States right now, but I'm from Canada, and I think Canada is known for as being a peaceful country. It wants to see mediation, it wants to see peace, and it wants to sort of encourage both sides to come back from the brink.
Yeah, sure. That's the point. You know, my point is, Andy, my point is this, and I clarify here. I clarify here that Andy is a distinguished professor at the University of Alberta in Canada on that. But I want to go to Dr. Mohammed Kojak. We are talking about going back from the brink, but going away from the brink. But are we going closer to the brink? Dr. Mohammed Kojak, please, from Ankara.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Based on what everyone said, let me just share my 2 cents on the issue. Well, first things first, this is an unprovoked aggression on the part of Russia. Russia has attacked Ukraine, and Ukraine did nothing to provoke Russia. For Russia to basically bomb civilian targets, cities, infrastructure, kill children and babies. So saying that we need to give peace a chance, just mediate between 2 countries, I'm not sure if that kind of approach would help the situation, because it is Russia that should take the step back and stop this aggression. So let's start from there, and then I think that kind of approach could give us some kind of perspective and help us resolve the issue. But saying that America should, call Zelensky or call Putin and do something, I mean, I think United States, same with every other country, has tried to stop Putin before he did this. However, those kinds of appeasing approaches didn't work. So I think we already got past the point, and the United States and the European countries have already started with their sanctions that are hurting the civilian population in Russia more than the Putin regime, by the way. So based on that, I think Putin must stop. Put an end to this misery of the Ukrainian people, and that's what I have to tell about this issue.
I'd like to go to China, and I don't think China is doing enough, Andrew, because Russia on the 12th day of the war is showing no prospect of slowing down. And my reporters on the ground are telling me that there is a lot of civilian casualties. There's bombing at all fronts. You fired 600 missiles at Ukraine, and there were horrifying images of the aftermath of the destruction in Vinnytsia, where Russia had fired 8 missiles, just 6 missiles going towards Kiev. I mean, the one thing that maybe Xi Jinping can do is pick up the phone. If Biden is not picking up the phone, pick up the phone. This is using this as a pretext for escalation is not good. And constantly, every single day, I find that today they say they got biological weapons, they got proof of biological and chemical weapons, and that's the reason they were invading. Yesterday they said the Ukrainians had a plutonium-based dirty bomb. These are all pretexts for escalation, Andrew. Why doesn't Xi Jinping pick up the phone now? What does he want? What does he want? He can. He's the only buffer. He's the only buffer that Russia has.
Well, don't forget that President Xi spoke
to Russia, President Putin, a number of times already. If you remember, earlier in this program, a couple of days ago, I did point that out. Even before anybody else spoke
Are you saying Putin's not listening to
President
Xi?
Putin.
Are you saying Putin's not listening to Xi?
Please don't try to interrupt me all the time. Please. Otherwise, I can't, you've got to allow me time to say what I want to say. I mean, I only spoke to less than 1 minute, and I keep on being interrupted. Well, I think the President Xi spoke to President Putin already a number of times. What China wants is to stop the war. But then the war cannot be stopped because it is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. It's a war between Russia and the West. The West is trying to push NATO all the time. Of course, you can say, wow, is the Ukrainian wanting NATO? Is the Ukrainians embracing NATO? It's nothing to do with the United States. But this is a travesty of the truth, because you look at waves and waves of NATO expansion, and that threatens Russia's national security. And you've got to address this concern. Now, the other thing is that, don't forget, the half of Ukraine, that's Russian-speaking people. They have the people that have got a lot of connections with Russia, and some of them in the eastern provinces, they were undergone a lot of persecution inside Ukraine for quite some time. So you've got to address these issues. And what China wants is to really rally the international organization to really try to come to the table, particularly the United States. I mean, who really
I think what China wants is to give America a bloody nose indirectly. I think what China wants is to give America a bloody nose indirectly, and I think that you should do it directly. The fact of the matter is, you're making this a division between two parts of the world, the realignment of the world, and I think China will push it till that happens. Mark wanted to respond closely. Ladies and gentlemen, on your screen, Russian trucks destroyed. Latest pictures coming in. The Ukrainians fighting back. And how? But I'd like a quick response from Mark. You heard that?
I'm speechless a little bit. I mean, about a lot of these comments. I mean, I think my Turkish colleague spoke very, very well on this point. This is a war which was started by Russia. That's as clear as can be. And Ukraine is a victim of this aggression. Russia has to pull back, stop this, stop killing civilians. And you can talk till tomorrow, and you can say all the things you want to say, but the conscience of humanity understands what goes on here. It is not about one nation. It's attacking.
Okay, Nikita responding. 30 seconds. Nikita wants to respond back. Nikita wants to respond. Let him respond. Let Nikita respond. I could say Anatoly was clapping out there. Nikita responds. Anatoly responds. 1 minute, I'm extending the debate. Nikita, quickly.
Russia isn't one who started the war. It was Ukraine who started the war. Who killed more than 7,000 of Russian people in Donbass.
Are you as mad as your leader, as your
So please stop crying.
Who started the war, and we, Russia, are to finish it. We are to stop your aggression, and we are
to free people of Ukraine taken as hostages.
Anatoly.
People in Russia.
Let me say a few words.
Anatoly to Nikita, please. Anatoly, go on.
Yeah. First, I have a question to our honorable host. Why do you give floor to Russian propagandists saying such a lies that Ukraine started the war? Can you believe it?
You killed
our people are dying on their own land. Our air forces are fighting, and those
your country is aggressor.
And
you killed
we are aggressor. Look at the screen. Look at the screen. It's not our tanks. It's yours. It's Russian on our land. Please don't give floor to such a lies, because it's not a discussion. It's a pure propaganda.
Okay.
Please stop it.
I would tell you that I think the Russians should be very, very careful You know, I think this Putin is threatening to escalate over a no-fly zone. And for every diplomatic things that Lavrov says, the things on the ground are different. I really worry. I really worry that with the ceasefire not working, things can escalate very fast. I thank you all very much for joining me on this debate. And ladies and gentlemen, when I come back on the other side, I'm going to bring you the latest on politics. And we have the results of the exit polls. And it's clearly showing that whether people like it or not, Yogi is getting ready for a second term in Uttar Pradesh. See you in a few minutes. Political news. Also on the other side, the entire gamut of Republic reporters, the largest reporting team, in a few minutes.